All right, guys, let me try to navigate through this during the time that I have with my battery that I have. So we obviously have a massive impulse for ETH, which is great, especially if you guys took some of those longs that I was mentioning. I did close mine a little bit shorter. I actually closed mine roughly around the 4,400 benchmark. I fully closed out. I wasn't anticipating 4,600s. We do have an order block that sits in that area. But wave 3 can always hit higher fib levels, and what you see right here in purple, this area right over here, these are some of the fib levels that I'm looking at that we tapped into. Now I'm on a daily right now, and what I want to see is if we actually close underneath this 2.72 benchmark, and you can see that I have additional fibs that come up a little bit higher, obviously all-time high right in here, and then a big thick order block that you can see from a weekly, and we're going to dive into weeklies here in a second. But based on just this candle itself and these fib levels, this red candle is showing me exhaustion at the current moment. Essentially, having a massive pump like this, it needs to take a cooler, it needs to take a breather altogether. So let's just back up and just look at this in the event that, let's say this was a 5 wave count, because I have a couple ideas and I'm just brain dumping on you guys. Right, we had the impulse from this low, which was obviously 1387. We have 1, we have 2. Now notice this 2 level was a 0.5 fib, which essentially for a wave 2 is flat. We got to keep that in mind, because now that we potentially have topped out here in this area, wave 4 at minimum would need to come here to 0.32. That would still be considered flat in comparison to wave 2, because wave 2 went to wave 5. That essentially would mean that wave 5 was quote unquote sharp. But in the event that we lose that level, then we're not going to come to 0.5. We're going to come to this 618 area, which is 3078. Could go a little bit lower if it wanted to, depending on how sharp it goes. I really don't want to see it retrace further than 2890. But full disclaimer, even if it did retrace to those levels, that is still extremely bullish for ETH. Now, I'm looking at a potential wave 5 areas right around 1.272, which is right around 5,200 and some change, right? It's 5,500 and some change. So we're looking for these levels to be tapped into for all-time high. Obviously, when we get to those levels, that's going to be price discovery. We don't really know what's going to happen at that point. It could go a little bit higher, could be a little bit shorter than that, right? We could actually just come up to this level right over here of 5,049, right? Wave 5 doesn't necessarily have to go to 1.272. It can fall shy of that level. Now, one thing I'm taking into consideration is I mentioned I want to look at a weekly for us, because when we go to a 2-week, let's just hop over to a 2-week real quick. I want you guys to see this. Actually, you can see it better on daily first, so you get the gist of what I'm explaining here. Actually, I'll go to a 2-day just because it has better data for us to see this. Right, the first time that we hit these levels right over here, inside this zone, hit that all-time high in these levels, this came from a 5th wave. This essentially was our 5th wave, so we started to see distribution in this area. The reason I'm pointing that out is because usually what follows a 5 impulsive wave is you're going to see an ABC correction. And so that ABC correction looks something like this, right? You get the idea. And then we go into a new impulse, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. That makes sense. That all adds up. Now, what is this drop right here? There's no ABC inside this zone. So if you map it out from a larger scale, you can look at it 2 ways, right? If you're looking at it from a daily perspective, you can look at it as something like this. This was A, and yes, wave B can exceed wave A in these scenarios like this, and then you'd have a wave C. Either something a little bit shorter than wave A, it could go deeper than wave A. We can do the measurements for that, but what I really want to point out to you guys is that this move doesn't have an ABC correction. It doesn't have it at all. So there's a likelihood that even though we're getting 5 impulse waves here, this entire move up is just a wave B, right? We don't know that. So that's something that we need to look into. So now when I go over to a weekly, actually I was dancing around on a 2-week just because there's better data. Let's look at it from a wider view, right? All-time high, again, A, and then we had a B, which is right over here. That would make this next move a C. So this entire time from when we hit our bear market lows, right where wave A was at, this entire time we've been inside of a B wave on higher time frames, and so C wave would put us here in this area. So the reason I'm pointing that out is in the event that we don't hit all-time highs, in the event we go down to daily and daily continues to sink, right? Let's say we get into invalidation, like these levels hold, we lose wave one, then we're dancing inside invalidation. Like, this is going to be your confirmation that we're entering into a bear market, or you already are in a bear market, like just topped out here in this area. This is going to be your confirmation that we're inside of a bear market. If we start to lose this level right over here, then that means this 5-wave impulse is going to be invalidated, and this entire move up was just a wave B, and that now we're entering into a wave C. And that same wave B is on lower time frames, such as a daily, as I pointed out to you guys just a moment ago, right? This move from here to here, and then wherever wave C is going to go. Notice how we lose this level. Wave C is not going to come to here. It's not going to do that. It's going to come lower if we are in fact inside of a wave C. So I'll go back over to a 2-week and just looking at that from a wider scale. Extreme bullish scenarios, right? Let's say you're crazy, like not inside of a wave C. This thing's going to keep going. It's going to go to 7,000, 10,000. And I do have charts mapped out for that. You can see it. It's actually pinned on my Twitter. I'm bullish on ETH. I want ETH to hit those 7K. It's an underperforming asset. But let's just play devil's advocate here, if you will. For it to be extremely bullish, I'm looking at this level being retested. Notice how we rejected it, then we just fired right past it. Typically, we need to come back and retest this area. And we can see that this has happened before. Reject, boom. So now that we rejected it twice, then we shot right past it. For this to be extremely bullish, it makes sense to come over here and retest this area. And so now when we go back over to a daily, that's somewhat in line with the areas that we're talking about, right? Maybe we catch a strong wick that comes down to the downside, but that 38 benchmark, 38.86, sits like around there. You know, I'll go ahead and put a line for you guys just so you have better visuals, right? Right inside of that area. And so mathematically, like, if we're not going to come to this level, we should come and tap this fib level if we're going to be extremely bullish, utilizing this line as support, an uptrend support line. Notice even on wave 2, it pierced right through it, then pulled right back up. So we could see something like that here in this area, right? Maybe we get down to 0.32, have a little push down to this area, and then pull right back up, right? So we're not going to come down to this level. If we come down to this level, we're for sure coming down to here. We're not going to bounce off of this 0.5. That makes no sense for a wave 4 in comparison to wave 2. It's either here inside of this area, maybe just a little bit lower for trend line liquidity. People that are trying to long this with high leverage, take them out real quick and then move them right back up. That's what we saw in wave 2. If it pierces through and then rejects this trend line, then this becomes trend line liquidity. We're 100% coming down to these levels. I'm going to be optimistic and say that we come down into these areas, hundreds to 3,800s. That in a nutshell is kind of what I'm looking at. I have a lot of ideas that are on this, from daily to 4-hour to weekly. And I'm just trying to figure out if this is a top for us. And we have a little bit more room to go inside of this 47.63 benchmark. And keep you guys posted. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, or if you guys want to dive into this a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully this helps. I'll catch you guys soon.